Hey gardeners! Today's video is going to be about trimming and maintaining tomato plants and squash and zucchini plants. Basically just maintenance that will help keep them healthy and avoid diseases that you want to worry about. So starting off, we are going to be pruning my tomato plants. You've got the main stem and all the separate branches, but you'll notice on your tomato plants that between the main stem and the branch, sometimes these little things grow. This is called a sucker. Now, it's not 100% necessary to remove these things, but I recommend it because these will grow an entirely new stem, and that will take away a lot of the energy that the plant will use later on to produce the actual tomatoes. So I like to pull all of these guys off. And if you let it go too far, these will become big giant stems, and it will be a lot more damaging to the plant to rip them off at that point. I like to think of it like this. The suckers will literally suck a lot of the energy from the tomato plant. And I want my tomato plants to focus their energy on growing tomatoes instead of a bunch of different branches. I usually try to get them at this size or smaller. Once they start getting bigger, it's really possible, like when you go to pull it off, it peels like a slice down on the stem, and the bigger the open wound, the greater the chance for that tomato to get disease or give off the scent that's going to attract all the bugs that you don't want. Also, at this state of the plants, I'm not quite ready for them to be producing tomatoes yet. I want them to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and higher up where I can tie them up to this metal fencing before they start producing their tomatoes, their blossoms and all of that. So whenever I see little blossoms getting ready to start growing, I just go on and pinch those off too. Here's an example of when you let a sucker go. I missed this one, and obviously it's big, and it was growing all of its own little suckers in the creases of its branches. I went on and cut off the branch that was going down that the sucker came from the armpit of, but it's just kind of big at this point, and I didn't think it was a good idea to have such a large open wound by cutting it off. So I'm just gonna let that one go and try to catch them before they get to this point. Basically, the stem splits in half, and there's two stems with branches coming off of it now. But truly what I want is to just have one main stem with branches coming off of it. They grow so quickly, and you'll pull them off, and a week later they'll be regrowing in the same spots. So it's constant upkeep, but it's worth it because your tomato will produce a lot more produce if you let it focus its energy solely on that. So I just take little garden shears, and I will cut the lower branches. Oh, I see a sucker. Hope they're all So long, suckers. So here's a before. You've got all these lower leaves, all the suckers growing in between. We're gonna give these babies a haircut. So fresh, so clean. I think I read somewhere that you can take these and plant them in wet soil and they'll start rooting and they'll grow their whole own tomato plant. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that, but it's worth doing a little more research into. Sometimes the tomato plant wants to do this funky thing where it bends over and it needs a little extra help for support. So I get some of the twine and I'll hold it up and I'll tie it up. They're all cleaned up. So it's harder to see it in the video, but the whole bottom stems are just clean. This helps keep airflow good throughout the tomato plants. It helps keep the leaves drier because they're not in the splash zone when I'm watering. And it keeps the leaves a little higher up off the ground, which helps make it a lot harder for pests to find the tomato plants. And basically it helps prevent the infestations that would occur. So we let Colin's grandma have this little 12 by 6 foot space in her garden so she can grow some of her stuff. And this is what happens when you don't trim suckers off of your tomato plants at all. They become very, very bushy and stemmy. So if this is what you're looking for, you want a big bushy tomato plant, that's perfectly fine. This will still produce the tomatoes. As you can see, there's blossoms coming off of everything, but this plant will not produce as much as it could because it has all of these different stems and branches to direct its energy to as well. I finished all of the tomatoes. Quite a bit. They got nice and stained from touching the juices of the tomatoes. I love the smell of tomato plants. They smell so amazing. Thank you for the kisses, Frank. Okay, so for the squash plants, for the squash plants, one of the common diseases, or I guess problems that you'll have with squash and zucchini is powdery mildew. And that is a result of not getting enough water or airflow. So a lot of times it's really good to clear out the lower, older leaves of the squash plants. I like to use gloves for this because the stems of the squash and zucchini plants have these little prickles on them, and sometimes they actually kind of hurt when you are handling them. My squash plants did get powdery mildew last year, and you just make a solution with neem oil and water and you spray that on them where the powdery mildew is, and that pretty much clears it up within like 1 or 2 treatments, as long as you catch it early on. If you let it go for over a week, it will pretty much kill the plant. So you do want to make sure you treat it early on if you find powdery mildew. I just did an inspection of all of my squash plants and I don't see it on anything, so I just want to prevent anything like that from happening. So for example, got all these great big healthy leaves, but if you go into the underneath, we've got some of these lower leaves. We had the bug infestation going on. Ooh, looks like something ate part of the stem. Interesting. Well, anyway, I'm gonna go through and clear these lower leaves. The stuff down here, I'm gonna clear all of that out. Even like, so for example, this one right here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I can take off the bottom 3, 4 of them, just, and the plant will be totally fine. It doesn't need all of its leaves to be fine. So I'll kind of just start with this one, and I'll just show it before. It'll make it a little easier. So we'll start here where the marigold is planted. So this is the before. And here is the after. So they'll get a lot better airflow, being more open like this. And I'm gonna go through and do that to all the zucchini and all of the squash. Well, I got all of the squash mounds finished and only a couple of the zucchini mounds, but I'm losing light and all the mosquitoes are starting to come out at full force. So I'm going to call it for tonight. So this morning I came out here and I came out pretty early and watered everything in the garden, a very deep watering throughout the entire garden, because I expected it to be a very hot, dry day today. And literally, after more than 2 hours of deep watering my entire garden, it starts pouring down rain. Literally moments after I finish. But luckily it was just a quick roll through thunderstorm, and it only rained for about 10 minutes, so it wasn't significant. None of the plants got severely overwatered or anything. But I only water the garden about once every 3, 4, 5 days, just because I do deep watering and then I just let it go, so it'll encourage my plants to root deeper into the ground. They'll have a stronger support system. They'll be able to have access to more nutrients with a bigger root system. So I mean, that I do that on purpose. It was just kind of crazy how that worked. But anyway, I finished weeding around all of the zucchini plants that I didn't get to finish last night when it got a little too dark for that. And I kind of just wanted to show off how great everything looks now. So these are all the zucchini plants. And it's really exciting. All of them are getting ready to put off flowers. So The ones that you see, the long skinny stem, this is a male flower. And then the ones that you see, the fat stem, that's a female flower. When pollinators come through, they'll land in the male flowers and they'll get the pollen from that, and then they'll fly and they'll land in the female flower and they'll pollinate that. And then this stem part that's a little fat right there is what will become the actual zucchini. So it makes me really excited to look at all of these plants and see these. I mean, look at all of those females. These are all going to be zucchinis. And I'll show when the time comes self-pollinating method, just to ensure that all of my zucchini is pollinating. But I mean, it's all of them. We're gonna have so much zucchini on our hands. And all of the squash plants are doing really amazing too. So same for these. You can see all the male and female flowers starting to get started. Let's see. You can see the female in there. Mostly males. These are the patty pans. Look, you can see the little baby patty pan squash starting to grow. That's so cute. So adorable. Hello. Hi there. Just taking a little break on the straight neck squash. I get it. Sometimes you just need a break. That is how you keep tomato and squash plants maintained and healthy. Clearing out the brush all around them and all of the lower, older leaves. That will help prevent a plethora of diseases and illnesses that these plants can get, and help keep them nice and healthy so that they can thrive in your garden. Just a quick edit for the end of this video. Something I forgot to mention is that by pruning your tomato plants and your squash plants, it is a way to encourage them to grow. It kind of gives them a boost and re-energizes them to start growing a little quicker. So it's only been 4 days since I took that video where I pruned everything, and I just want to show you the difference already in the size of these tomato plants. They have gotten this like burst of energy and they are just growing like crazy now. These are the same tomatoes that I showed in the video, and I don't know if you can really tell the difference. I mean, being out here and seeing it in person, I can definitely see the difference. They have just shot up in size, and their leaves are looking really full, really healthy. They just look really good. So this is proof of the benefit that pruning your tomatoes will have on the health of the plants. Same with the squash plants. This is the one that I did the circle around in the video. This is a 4-day difference from when I trimmed that. How much bigger these leaves have gotten. It just looks really healthy. It's just really thriving now. So moral of the story, pruning your plants is very good for their health, and I highly, highly recommend it. Get out there and cut your plants. I hope this video was helpful and you can utilize some of these tips in your own garden. Thanks for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and as always, happy gardening.